Frankel saying hello to you, and let's all get drawing. So today we are talking about and drawing about folds in cloth, and I do know that creates lots of problems for people, so I hope that I can help you out and you'll follow along with me. Have any of you tried to draw folds in cloth? What I find is that people tend to panic a little bit when they see all of these folds in the cloth. That's actually quite a simple cloth. I also took some photographs. I put this is a towel that I have, just a little face cloth which I have, and I'll show you when we get to the above camera. So this is much more simple. As I mentioned before, this is relatively simple, and you might be thinking, you're looking at that and thinking, oh my God, that's not very simple. There are folds everywhere, there are creases everywhere. How on earth am I going to do that? So the very, very first step I am saying to you is worry about, or don't worry about, but think about simplifying what you are looking at, and only be concerned about one fold or crease at a time. So often your mindset when looking at something like that is, oh my God, there's so many creases there. How on earth am I going to draw this folded cloth? And in fact, you don't have to draw all of the folds. So for me, the main section of this cloth, which I've had a practice at drawing, is that line there, going down there, is one main crease, and coming into it is that crease and that crease. Yeah, so that for me is the main deal in this photograph. So even that's too many to worry about. If we take them away one at a time, and we just go to one, literally one at a time, and we just look at that line, I'm drawing it again and again and again, okay? Obviously you don't want to draw it again and again and again, you just want one line. But what I want to say to you is, if you start just with that crease there, once again, it's all about the shapes of tone. So it's not any different to drawing anything else, but it does require close observation because you're working with something fairly delicate that you want to try and show off. So one crease at a time, simplify, simplify, simplify. That is your first tip, and it's a biggie. Try not to let go of it. Not only will it help your mindset and not panic, you're just drawing one thing at a time, one line at a time. Not only will it do that, but it will help you to zoom in on the main set of folds, or the main fold, or at least one fold to start off with, because everything else relates to that. And depending on how much time you've got, how much of the folds you want to show, you can spend hours and hours and hours showing off all these other shades, etc., etc. But only once you have started with just one and put the shading in on that just one. So I promise you that's a massive tip, and we forget about it. Be kind to yourselves. Just one at a time. The next tip, your 2B pencil is your most versatile pencil for sketching and drawing. However, when we want to draw something a bit more delicate, you can go to other strengths of pencil. Strengths isn't the word, grades is the word of pencil. And a very lovely student of mine gave me this set, which goes all the way from 10H to 10B. And I think I've used up my 2B. And I've taken a few out of there. And I'm going to just demonstrate a little bit of why different grades help you. And so this is the first part of your second tip, which is to not necessarily only use your 2B pencil. Depending on your paper, it grabs the graphite, which is what those leads are. It grabs the graphite quickly or not so quickly. So this is cartridge paper, which you can see grabs the graphite and gives you a very nice tooth there. This is printer paper, and you can see it actually doesn't grab the graphite quite as quickly as the cartridge paper, which has some tooth. So depending on your paper tooth and depending on the grade of your pencil, it will show as grainy or soft on your page. And what happens with the 2B is that it might be a little bit soft, that is the graphite in the tip. The softer the pencil is, the more it will grab, the quicker it will grab. So if I grab this 9B, I might as well grab the 10B now that we're talking. That grabs it very, very quickly, but it leaves a very, very soft mark. So I'm going to suggest to you that when you draw folds, because they are delicate, you go to your HB and or to higher H's. So HB, that's a 2H, that's a 3H. That's actually just an H, which I assume is a 1H. And they are different grades of pencil, and you can see in fact that the HB is not quite as pointy as those ones. And if I go right down to my 10B, although it's very, very subtle with what you can see, that is the pointiest of all. And that is because the H stands for hard, so there isn't as much graphite in the mix, and the point remains hard. And that's the second part of choosing your pencil, which is your second tip. And the second part of that is, when you want to draw delicately, you need to have a sharpened pencil. So even if you are drawing with a 2B, the point goes down very, very quickly. So I'm going to sharpen this 2B again to get a sharper point. And I'll be able to put a cleaner line down so that when I tone up to that edge, you have a clean, crisp edge between that and the white paper. So drawing your folds is still all about shapes of tone up against each other. So you can see in that white fold there, you've got a line up on the left of that fold, and you've got the shading coming right up to that edge, and that indicates this fold of cloth changing. So can you see what I'm talking about there? I'm talking about, just draw on this cloth again, that fold there. We can only see that fold because of the change in tone. Okay, so to reiterate, your choice of pencil grade and how sharp your point is your second tip. Now we come to the third tip, and that is, don't try and get to the depth of tone, how dark it is, straight away. The process of layering is your friend when it comes to folds. there are actually two kinds of folds that we can deal with. One is a fold where the difference in tone is very, very clear. So this is actually folded completely underneath there, so we can see a strong dark shadow here, and we can see a very, very clear light right next to it. The second type of fold that we deal with is one where it is not so clear and the tone is gradually going from light to dark. Okay, so they're similar, it's just that the tone here will change gradually. You can see that in what I'm demonstrating, and there is a gradual change, and there's a gradual change. Can you see how gradual those are? But that is not gradual at all. The real fold goes in that direction and then a bit down like that, and there is a shape of the shadow, and so the biggest change is going to be, now my HB is already getting a bit soft there, but I'm going to carry on, and I'm actually going to hold the pencil right the way at the end so that I can put the pencil on its shaft. I don't want to tone in with line, I want to tone in with the side of the shaft and gently put that HB down. I've done the this shadow, but I'm not happy with how crisp that edge is. So I'm going to come back in with an H or a 2H. I'm not usually this particular about my work because I choose not to draw delicately like this. So it's not a bad exercise. I am particular about my work, but in a different kind of way. So I am making that edge a little bit sharper, and my pencil is sharper. So I don't know if you can see that beginning to happen. I am not particularly worried about all of these other shiny things going on this material. We've got that sharp edge and we've got a white line which we are going to actually leave, and I'm going to continue with an H pencil because the tone of the shadow here is so much lighter than the tone of that cast shadow which is created by that fold. And we'll get to the layering in a sec. So first thing was pick one at a time. Second thing is to use different grades of pencil. Now over here, that white line kind of disappears, so I can match it up a little bit there. And now I'm actually going to put in this other edge. Basically, if you want to do folds in cloth, you need some patience and you need to practice, and it's quite therapeutic. Okay, so what I'm missing now is that fold there. So can you see I just started with that? I didn't worry about anything else. Then I went to, okay, how does this fold interact with that? And I can even go a bit thinner. And you can only do that delicately with a nice sharp point so that you can see where it is. Now I'm going to go back to my HB and I'm going to fill in this one. Now if you've watched previous videos of mine, I know some people are not beginners any longer, that sort of thing, or they've come in to our group not having seen all the tutorials. Please go back either on Facebook or on YouTube. Go to the Get Drawing or Karen Frankel. Get Drawing with Karen Frankel is the YouTube name, and look for shapes of tone and drawing a tonal ladder, because we are still working with those shapes of tone and tonal ladder. Now, there isn't a tone 5 on this particular piece of material. It's very delicate, and no, we're not going to go tone 5, but for this particular piece, we have gone as dark as we have. That's going to be our darkest dark, so everything has to relate to that. Now, I don't know if you can see here, because I went in with my HB, the edge between that and that is now quite soft, and because I put in my shading here, I didn't leave that little white edge. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to layer, let me choose my H pencil. I'm going to layer on top of the HB to make that edge much, much crisper. So it's gone a smidge darker, but not by much. So on that side, the shadow fades away. But on this side, it's quite crisp. Can you see that? Now, what do we do about that very, very light on the edge there? Well, your trusty old kneadable eraser is quite useful. And I don't know if you can see, I have squeezed it into a thin line. I find that much more useful than trying to do that, because if you do that, all it does is bend like that. Okay, so if you make a little ridge, then I can put the ridge down and I can clean up that edge and I can get my white back. Now, I don't know if that is delicate enough, sorry, not delicate enough, if that is close enough for you to see, but I have got my back, and it doesn't matter if it gets bigger, because you can come back in with your different grade pencil to soften it. So I'm looking at the material there. The material has got a grain on it. I'm definitely not worrying about trying to get that grain. And I'm delicately, so this is my H pencil, layering up that. So as I'm going, I am comparing this tone to that tone, to this tone, to that tone, all the way down. So now I can choose to continue this one and put that fold in if I wish. So it's slowly but surely you move from one to the next, and you carry on like that. Each time you go to a new shape of tone, choose how dark or light it is compared to others that you've already put in. It's incredibly important, and so many people don't do that. And this applies to all of your drawing. You've set up a parameter with that first one, which doesn't mean to say it can't change, but in the meantime, you have to follow something. So that's the one we're going to follow. And I might put a little bit more of the H down there, and I might put a little bit of H down there. My drawing shape isn't particularly accurate. I'll forgive myself. And I might put a little bit of H tone there, and I reckon that this tone of this triangle here is about the same as that, not as dark as that. There's very little difference. So I'm let's go back to my HB. You can, of course, build the whole thing up just with a 2H. If I put my 2H there, I'm just putting this down separately, and I build up another layer, and I build up another layer. But as soon as you fill up the tooth of your paper, you will no longer be able to put any tone down. So if your pencil is a hard pencil, you might fill up the tooth before you get there. So it's a case of practicing which pencil to use. But I'm not using my 2B because I want it to be more delicate. And this goes in beautifully to that, and that is a lovely soft edge there. Now, once again, there is a very crisp edge there, so I'm going to go to my H. And I'm going to layer on top of my HB so that this crisp edge here looks good. And this crisp edge here looks good. Now, I'm correcting myself because that is too much of a dark edge there, so I want to actually make it fill into the shadow. There is indeed a use for H pencils when you want delicate tones. I'm just going to use my eraser to soften some things back there. How is that looking? It's looking like a fold? Yes. I quite like that one going in there. Okay, so there's one I did earlier. Again, on this one, it's not quite the same shape as the one you're looking at. Maybe this fold is dented, but seriously, that's called fiddling, and I'm over worrying about that. That's how you do folds in cloth, one at a time. Concentrate on the main creases or folds that you can see. You do not have to put them all in. It is an excellent technique. Anytime you need a crisp edge, don't worry about using a slightly harder pencil. Another little tip while we're here, when I do my still lives and that sort of thing, sometimes when we use so much of this technique of the hand over the pencil to put your toning in, we end up with these soft lines everywhere, and we find it difficult to show the difference. I've just put my eraser there. The difference between that and that is tone, right? And that's actually quite a hard-edged tone. So when I say hard-edged, I mean it's a crisp edge, not necessarily a dark edge. So there, that candle has got a crisp edge, but it hasn't got a dark edge. And shading just like that is not going to give you that crisp edge. So make sure, even if it's a 2B, even if it's a 9B, which I wouldn't suggest, but even if it's a 2B, make sure that you sharpen your pencil so that you can actually get a crisp edge. Don't be afraid of holding your pencil so that you can get a tip. You can draw very, very gently. Just because you're holding your pencil to do line work doesn't mean it has to be dark, okay? But to get a crisp change in tone, you do sometimes need to pay attention to how blunt or pointed your pencil is. I hope that has been useful for you. Karen Frankel signing out for another week. Thank you for joining me, and get drawing. Bye.